Welcome back to the When It Matters podcast. I'm here with the fabulous Fi Titus. Fi, it's so lovely to have you on the pod.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Elle.
So let's start with you and your kind of career journey so far. I always say that Fi's one of the busiest people I know. So do you want to give us a quick synopsis of your career and what you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess a whistle stop tour, and I'll let you decide whether it's sort of full circle or a zigzag, which direction we go in. But yeah, so I'm Fi. I started my career at Deloitte. I qualified as a chartered accountant there in audit. I very quickly realised I did not want to be an audit partner, so I made the next obvious move, which was to quit and start a Caribbean street food truck. At the time, my parents...
It's my favourite plot twist.
At the time, I think my parents were quite concerned, like, who quits their really stable job in a great company to sell chicken on a market stall? But that's what I decided to do. So I started Lime Hut, a contemporary Caribbean street food brand, and we had a pop-up in Soho and a kitchen takeover in Peckham. And I had a lot of fun running that business. But whilst I was running that business, I kept meeting really phenomenal creative founders, other street food vendors, female entrepreneurs who were maybe running a business for the first time, who were very passionate about their product or service, but lacked a bit of knowledge and confidence when it came to tackling accounting, tax, finance, strategy. And so I co-founded Coco Financial with my business partner to create a safe space where there was no such thing as a silly question for early stage entrepreneurs. And I had been doing that for the last 5-6 years until the start of this year, where I moved to Dublin for a really exciting accelerator program. I basically wanted to take a bet on myself and leverage tech in the area that I really cared about, which was entrepreneurship, finance and accounting. And I met my co-founder there and we created Finio. And so Finio AI is my newest venture. And that was born out of a really exciting accelerator program earlier this year. And we are very quickly building tools for accountants to help them better service their micro businesses. So started in accounting, tried to leave to sell chicken on a market stall, came back to accounting, and now building for accountants in the tech space.
So cool. I think such an interesting career journey. And I think just to sort of double click on the Caribbean street food business, which is my favourite pivot, like sideways of all time. So when you're working with lots of other creative founders who weren't that confident about finance and you started Coco Financial, you obviously created this safe space for entrepreneurs to, as you say, there's no such thing as a silly question, which I also love because I would have so many silly questions about finance. Like, what does that actually look like? Talk us through, what this kind of space looks like.
Yeah, well, I just noticed that the other street food vendors were just a bit unsure and they were really scared about HMRC letters coming in a brown envelope and getting all the fear. And I just realized there was a huge fear around the administrative finance and strategy side of running a business. Let's be real, most business owners don't start a business because they're passionate about Excel spreadsheets and being on hold to HMRC. They start a business because they make incredible Egyptian falafels or because they have an incredible marketing agency and they know how to bring their skill set to other people. And so the safe space that we created was a community, workshops, seminars, education pieces, and I affectionately got the nickname the Financial Fairy Godmother.
I've heard this. I was going to ask the story behind this.
Yeah, it was, essentially just what we did was we helped take very boring, dull, complex, difficult topics and just brought them to life, made them a bit fun. Few memes, few gifts here and there, and all of a sudden, everyone in our community is bossing their finances, having great conversations with their accountants. So yeah, it was really about community, education, financial literacy, but the real big piece was confidence.
I love this. And I guess with your tech business that you're kind of working on now, and you're sort of helping accountants sort of manage their clients better, and supporting entrepreneurs and kind of building their startups. Talk us through how has supporting these entrepreneurs helped you when you're building your own company now? Are there any lessons that you've kind of borrowed from your customers and previous clients? Mm.
Yeah, well, I mean, the entire reason that Finio exists is because of those micro businesses and entrepreneurs that I worked with, whilst building Coco Financial. What I realized was there was a gap, I guess, between their understanding of what accounting actually is and what accountants do, as well as sort of just, I guess, democratizing finance is what I'm trying to say. Is it was the big goal there. And so that's run the entire core of what's running through Finio. Yes, Finio is a tech tool for accountants. Finio is their AI teammate to help accountants better service their micro business clients in more profitable and scalable ways. But the reason that's the heart of what I'm trying to do is because I know who's on the other side. It's those small businesses that don't know what questions to ask their accountant, or maybe ask, inverted commas, silly questions that aren't silly at all. And the dialogue piece between micro businesses and their accountants is what we're trying to solve. And so I guess just learning firsthand, seeing the fear, the burying the head in the sand, the leaving things to the last minute, is what I've seen of so many micro businesses, that actually I then have now understood the knock-on effect of what that has for accountants themselves. And so that's why Finio is designed for the accountants to be able to better service those businesses.
I see. I love that. And being on both sides of the coin, I guess, has
Yeah.
informed this so well.
It's literally two sides of the same coin. It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I love that. And so, if you're building in this incredible accelerator in Ireland, tell us a little bit about that experience and also how you met your wonderful co-founder.
Yes.
Yeah,
so my co-founder Jackson, who is on board this Finio journey alongside me, 50-50. It was actually a really mad way that we met, and it's going to sound like a fake story, but it's true. This accelerator is a really interesting one. In Dublin, Dogpatch Labs in the CHQ building, phenomenal entrepreneurial hub. But the way that the program works, the program's called Founders, is it's kind of like The Apprentice meets Love Island.
Obsessed with this.
But rather than trying to find a romantic partner, you're trying to find a business partner. So honestly, the Love Island analogies are so funny because you want to pull someone for a chat, trying to work out if they're the right kind of person that you want to work with, and then there are breakups left, right, and center, and it gets like publicly announced like Fia's now single, ready to mingle. Seriously,
publicly announced,
publicly within the cohort, yeah. And so then if someone's not so happy with their partner, they might. Hey, let's meet at the fire pit. No, there were no fire pits. But yeah, so essentially you were just, rather than dating, you were going on what's called a sprint. So like a business sprint, a tech sprint, with your ideas. And, some people meet and instantly get on, but they just can't find an idea or a domain area of expertise that they cross over in. And other people find that crossover, but not quite the right working style.
The chemistry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was thrilled when I met Jackson that was my type on paper, but also in reality. So yeah, we actually got on like a house on fire from the very beginning, and we just formed a genuine friendship, and we actually weren't going to work with each other. We just we got on really well. We played the field elsewhere, but we eventually came back together. And I think we've got such complementary skill sets, that as someone who's I've co-founded a business before, on a much sort of smaller scale, but very much found myself in the role of sort of the main leader, whereas in this instance it's very 50-50, and he brings so much to the table that I am clueless at. I have no idea how to build tech. That is why Jackson is the expert there, and then I bring the commercial angle as well as my domain area of expertise, which is entrepreneurship and accounting. Yeah. And one thing you said was sort of about how how we as co-founders have kind of are working. One thing I found on this process is I've realized that I'm like the what and the who about any problem, and he's the how and the why. And like it's
Perfect.
great
Yeah.
because then it's like we've covered all angles, but we're always thinking about things sort of with our own hats on. And so yeah, it's a really brilliant co-founding relationship.
That's so interesting. I had no idea that's how the accelerator worked. Someone needs to, maybe you, oh, if this after Fineo's exit, you can make this into a TV show. So I would absolutely watch this. I mean, shame. I mean, I wish it could be filmed in a. You could do it in a villa in Mallorca. Maybe we have a word with the with the accelerator host. That sounds amazing. And did you, when you went into the accelerator, did you already have your business idea? Like, did you have kind of like a sort of seed of an idea, or were you like, oh, I've got several things I want to try out. Like, how did that work?
No, great question. So technically, the idea is to come like with a clean slate, meet people, iterate, and come up with ideas. Whilst it is a new idea from scratch that we kind of built together, it was built off of the back of, and this is the whole purpose of the accelerator, is to go deep on a space, listen, learn, and speak to your target customer. So whilst I had an inkling of the area I wanted to work in, which was, seeing micro businesses struggling with finance, how can we bridge that gap between small businesses and accountants? That was always the goal. The actual idea itself of building tech to help support with the client communication for accountants, that was born out of speaking to over 150 accountants, doing deep discovery calls, deep research. It was iterative. It was really hearing what's the deep problem. And we would hear time and time again accountants say, my inbox is like the A&E department. I don't know what's going to roll in. I then need to triage it. Is it for VAT? Is it for payroll? Is it an urgent tax inquiry? And so we just kept hearing the same problem over and over again. And that was where we kind of honed and refined the bigger idea, which was helping entrepreneurs with their accounting and finance, to actually realizing, well, here's the truth, actually. I went from saying poor micro businesses, poor small businesses, they're so underserved and overlooked, to poor accountants. Honestly, having to deal with these deadlines, the poor communication channels, the overwhelm. And it really helped me see, despite being an accountant myself, really seeing the day-to-day realities of what it is to run an accounting practice. And that was the story of how Fineo was born.
My gosh, I love this. And you spoke to 150
yeah
accountants. How long is this accelerator program?
Yeah, it's 3 months. So it was really getting out there. But I mean, even convincing people to, jump on the phone and chat to us is pretty hard. Entrepreneurship is a wild journey, just putting yourself out there. But what I would say is the accounting community is so friendly. They share ideas, they share knowledge. There's a real big sense of community with accountants, and that's what made speaking to and meeting so many of our target customer easy. Because they're willing to talk about challenges and share them, and knowledge sharing, basically. Yeah,
that's so true. I found the same actually with the accounting community. Everyone is so friendly. I thought it'd be more competitive, but it's not
at all. It's so collaborative. Yeah. It's just, I think it's perhaps one of those industries where there's so many clients to service,
right. Yeah.
perhaps, that you don't need to kind of gatekeep, oh, my clients, or my this, it's it's a really collaborative industry.
Yeah. Did you also work on lots of other kind of, when you were going through the accelerator process with different co-founders, on loads of other little businesses, or were you always
no, absolutely, because you're working with it's two different people coming together, and you're going to have different ideas. So briefly dabbled in a banking idea with someone, briefly dabbled in some what else, some energy. I actually, when I started at Deloitte, I worked in energy. I've missed that bit off. But none of them felt a bit too tenuous. I think I've stumbled across the core, the heart of everything I've been doing over the last 5 to 6 years, and just using tech to leverage that, really.
I love that. And I guess obviously you've founded businesses in the past, you've been like a sort of solo entrepreneur. What have you kind of learned about yourself, be it having a co-founder and suddenly being part of a duo who've got to make all these big decisions and call the shots?
I mean, it really is like having a mirror to your face. There's nowhere to hide in a co-founding relationship. You're building together, you are learning together, you're growing together, and the speed at which you're building in the tech space is so fast. And so what I've learned about myself, is that I used to maybe think I had all the answers. I think when running a business solo, you're like, I've got all the answers, like I'm doing it this way. But it's always like, actually, what does Jackson think? Like knowing full well, because like I said, I'm the what and the who, he's the how and the why. He's always going to come at something with a different angle. But that's the beauty of it. I feel like I'm accelerating way, way more than if I was going by myself, because you've got that. And when I say accelerate, I mean, I can see the longevity, right? I think when you're by yourself, you can go quicker because you're like, my decision, done this, snappy, right? But I think you can just go so much further with someone else. And so, yeah, it's been a bit like therapy, actually, just like realizing like, oh, actually, there's a better way of doing things, and let me listen to a completely different take. We've both got different sides of the brain, that kind of thing. So it's just so complimentary. And yeah, it's really, really, I would recommend anyone to, if you're going to run a business, like get a co-founder, if for nothing else, like to really just understand yourself better.
That's so interesting. I think the co-founder relationship dynamic is so interesting. I wish I could like interview loads of co-founders about their dynamic. I find it so fascinating. And I guess obviously you've supported so many businesses before you had your own. And I always think that you guys, your accountants, are such like fountains of wisdom and knowledge, because you've seen it all. Like the numbers don't lie. Like you're often the first to hear about when something's gone wrong. Were there any major kind of lessons that you learned or observations you made when you were an accountant and supporting different businesses that you kind of took with you when building your own?
Yeah, great question. And actually, I think the best way to answer this is there was a period of time where I was a head of finance for a tech startup. So this isn't my first rodeo, seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly with finances and everything when building a fast-growing tech company. I think what I've learned is over that period of time is that you just have to go for it. I think if you play small, it doesn't do yourself or your end goal any favors whatsoever, because building a business is really hard. Like I've helped businesses that maybe have a pop-up market stall and they sell candles on the weekend, what people might consider a side hustle, micro businesses. I've supported large businesses that are going through £1 million raises, right? And both businesses, no matter what the scale, are really, really hard. Like it's so hard to run a business, to find customers, to keep going, get your cash flow. Nothing about running a business is easy. So if you lower your ambition, it doesn't make it any easier.
That's so true.
At all.
Yeah.
So like that's what I've really learned. And I think that's almost something for me to see my own growth. Like I think when I first started the street food business and just I would call it my little business. The fact that I even called it my little business showed like where my mindset was at the time, kind of scarcity mindset. We are absolutely in growth mindset, Fi now.
No more little businesses.
No more little businesses. We are going rocketing to the moon. So that I'd say that's the biggest lesson I've learned, because I've seen like at every size, every scale, running a business is so hard. So don't make it any harder by lowering your ambition.
I think that's such good advice. That's actually so true as well. There's going to be pain whether you try and it's going to be painful whether you
absolutely
lower your standards or not. And I guess kind of double clicking on the kind of the accountancy piece and the finances piece.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur now, and also having supported so many founders, what are the kind of typical like top 3 financial worries, like for your average small business, average other founder right now? Like what are the top 3 financial worries that would sort of keep you up at night that you would want to really focus on and draw people's attention to with their business?
It's a great question. I'm going to frame it like slightly differently. I think on the basis that I often see small businesses or small business owners and entrepreneurs worry about revenue, which I get it, depending on what stage you are in your business and whether you've got external funding, maybe a metric that matters. It is a metric that matters, but I think sometimes they worry about revenue over cash, right?
Yeah.
Or profit. And again, like there's no right or wrong, because if you're a high growth startup, profit probably doesn't matter in the same way that revenue does, versus being a lifestyle business. But I would just say that like I think revenue is often a vanity metric, whereas profit is maybe what you call a sanity metric. But the bit that really matters is cash and cash flow. And I think most people don't really have a hold of their cash flow, because you can sign $1 million contract, but if they haven't paid or the deposit hasn't come through, like that's going to grind your business to a halt. And so I would say a worry that should keep entrepreneurs up at night is actually cash flow. But I too often see a focus on revenue rather than cash flow. So I think understanding when cash is coming in, what cash needs to come out is critical, because you can have $1 million revenue business, $1 billion revenue business, but if the cash flow ain't flowing, you're gonna have some problems. And then the other, I guess, financial worries, and this is just kind of anchoring it in the current UK environment. The small business owners I speak to are constantly worried about employment and payroll, just because the landscape's constantly changing. And I'd say I'm not too sure when this episode is going to come out, but we've got the new Labour budget coming out in late November, so that's been pushed to later, and no one knows what's going to be in it. And as a result, I'm seeing people freezing on hiring plans, freezing on strategic decisions, because of the uncertainty. And so I think a worry right now for many business owners is what's coming in the budget, and it's pausing a lot of people's plans. But I would just say, business owners, we're resilient. You got to keep going. We get thrown, curveballs left, right, and center. But the halt in activity and investment and strategy and hiring as a result of the delayed budget is a magnitude and a scale I haven't seen before.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Goodness. Yeah, I mean, I think I've sort of felt the same speaking to entrepreneurs recently. We have like a series where we speak to more kind of startup entrepreneurs, and I've kind of felt there's a real kind of reticence to kind of people to throw themselves into their, as you say, into building their companies because of all of this uncertainty. And I guess for you as well, having been on both the accounting side and also now been an entrepreneur, when you're kind of speaking to other founders, what's the kind of number one piece of advice you would give them as someone who's been on kind of both sides? Like you've literally been on the finance side and then also as an entrepreneur as well, like through both of those lenses. Yeah, what's the kind of top piece of advice you would give them?
Oh, great question. I mean, obviously I'm going to put on my accounting hat and say, look at your numbers. I think, entrepreneurs, like I said before, they start their business because they are really passionate about their product or their service, not because they're passionate about Excel spreadsheets. But if you're not keeping yourself accountable and looking at the numbers, it means you're running your business on vibes. And don't get me wrong, vibes are fun.
We love vibe coding. Yeah.
Vibes are cool, but it's not very strategic, right? And I don't just mean nitpicking and just like looking at profit, loss, revenue. I mean just like taking a proactive approach and like, where's your cash flow right now? Where do we want to get to? What's our next milestone? And as a result, what do we need to do? And that means making value-based decisions, not just cost-based decisions. So I would say to anyone who's, especially an early stage startup, because when you're an early stage startup, you don't have wads and wads of cash flying around, is to make sure that you're making value-based decisions rather than cost-based. Because I think it's very easy to say, oh, how much does this cost? Looking at things on a cost basis rather than, if we spend X, what value does that bring us? Or if we spend X, how much closer to our milestone does this get us?
That ROI piece, yeah.
Exactly. So that's with my accounting hat. And then with my entrepreneur hat, it is experiment. It is allow yourself the grace to experiment, try things out, get them wrong. I think as a perfectionist in a recovery, I think I'm recovered. But a recovered perfectionist. My favorite part about running a business is just experimenting, trying new things. Because I guess the previous perfectionist version needed to have every understanding and get things right before I took a step forward. But, you know, that was when I first started a business back in 2016. I've learned a lot of lessons since then. And it is all about experimentation. When you try something out, test something out, you learn really quickly what works and what doesn't. And it puts you way further ahead of the game than your counterparts who are not doing that. So experiment for your kind of growth curve trajectory.
Yeah, that failing faster mentality. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm such a champion of that. And I'm so interested because I think your background in both accounting and kind of entrepreneurship is so kind of topical for now, because I feel as though there's this new generation of really young founders in the AI space in particular. Like I think was, you know, hearing of so many kids sort of dropping out of school to build their AI companies. And I think, do you feel as though the role of the fractional CFO, the more of a strategic partner type accountant is going to become increasingly important as these really young entrepreneurs who, you know, let's be honest, have very limited, life experience, and I've been in that position myself. Do you think, the role of the fractional CFO and partnership focused accountant is going to become increasingly important? I think people talk about AI replacing accountants, but from where I stand, I feel as though it's becoming an increasingly important role, especially with this younger generation.
Yeah, really great question. I think it's already happening, right? I think if we're thinking about that, I think the future's already here in terms of the role and the value add that accountants and finance professionals have. It's being that partner in profit to businesses. And I think traditionally people think about accountants as back office, bean counting, like that, you hear the way people talk about accountants, and I think they don't actually understand like how wide and vast the accounting industry and the accounting profession is. But it's very clear that that's where the value lies, isn't it? It's that partner in profit, that trusted advisor. And so those relationships are going to only deepen and strengthen, even if some of the day-to-day admin and the manual inputting sort of work is replaced by AI. It's already happening, right? I think anyone who doesn't think that's happening is probably not jumped on the boat that's already left the harbour. But I think even going further, like than kind of where we're at now, to I think where accounting's going, and this is exactly why we're building Finio in the way that we are. 30% of accountants are due to retire in the next 5 to 6 years. And the reason why it's such a high percentage is because fewer young people are coming into the profession. It's not to say they're not coming in. There is talent that is coming in, and there's quality talent, but in terms of quantity, the numbers are quite skewed. However, there are more and more businesses being registered every single year on a upward trajectory. So there's going to be fewer accountants dealing with more clients and more customers, especially smaller ones, micro businesses, owner managed limited companies, and that's where all the kind of growth chaos happens for accountants. They want to grow, they want to service more businesses, but the more clients you take on, the more chaotic that inbox gets, the more chaotic the client ops gets. And so Finio is your AI teammate to help service especially those micro businesses, so that you can grow and scale more profitably. So that's my take on kind of the trend of where things are going for the accounting profession. And what that will do is, if Finio is doing all the kind of it's kind of like your junior colleague helping to manage the client correspondence, the client ops, that then frees you up as the accountant to be the valued trusted advisor, because your focus is entirely on the value add.
That's so true. And also have more touch points, right? Chat to your customers more
100%.
if everything else is being handled. I love that kind of philosophy around tech. And I guess why are less people going into the accounting profession, do you think? Because particularly when I look at your trajectory, it's like an incredible career to go into, right? Do you have any thoughts around why?
I mean, I'm just presuming that when I decided to become an accountant, like TikTok didn't exist. You didn't just go like viral like for like a cool video and have all these really cool, amazing careers that now exist. I often use this example. I've got a friend who she was interested in basketball, music, and film, and her parents and her teachers were like, you're all over the place. Like, pick one thing. Like, there's no career where you can do all of this. But Snapchat didn't exist at the time that we were getting career advice. Anyway, fast forward to the future. She's head of music and content for Snapchat for the NBA.
Oh my God.
Just nailed all three things. Basketball,
Smashed it. Yeah.
music. Exactly. But the point being, like, careers, traditional careers like accounting, law, medicine,
They weren't in favour a bit.
yeah, and I wouldn't even necessarily say fall out of favour, but just there's more competition. There's other things that you can do that we didn't really have as paths before. And I don't blame younger people for wanting to pursue really exciting careers outside of those fields. But I personally have had a really exciting career in this field, and it's going to continue. So I that's my take on it. It's not scientific. I've not backed that up with any sources. That's just my take on some of the younger people I maybe work with and sort of see. But yeah.
That makes sense. And also, the perfect time for Finio with the enter Finio in this new
Enter Finio.
account. That can be our thumbnail. Yeah. We leave it that. And I guess so something I love I've seen on your LinkedIn and your socials, you've said finances should be aligned with the life you want to live. And I love that philosophy. Can you share how that philosophy came about? And really unpack that for us.
Yeah, I think especially in a social media world where, everyone's sharing things online and what's true, what's not. Is that villa and that expensive car, is it rented? Have they bought it? You're never too sure. And I do think that we currently live in a world where people are constantly looking for external validation on what their financial situation should look like. And I think you just have to dedicate resources to the life that you want to live. And when I say resources, that's money, time, energy. If you want to live a certain type of life, dedicate resources to that, actively. And I think, not everyone's situation is different and you'll be starting from a different point, but the whole point there is just really truly understanding, if you want to have a lifestyle business where you get to spend time with your family, then dedicate resources to that. If you want to have a really juicy £10 million portfolio of investments, then dedicate your time and energy to those resources. And the reason I say that is because I just meet so many young entrepreneurs or first-time freelancers or people starting out that kind of look at what's online and I think they just kind of they're kind of passively waiting for this thing to happen. And so, I think just decide the kind of life you want and actively work towards it.
I love that. I think it's such good words of wisdom. And I feel like the kind of lack of financial education, right, that we kind of see in schools and stuff like that, maybe that's kind of contributing to how people don't really know how to line up their finances to ensure they get the life that they want. Is there anything in particular on the kind of education side that's a kind of good place for people to start, do you think, and kind of, working out how to use their finances to build the life they want to live? Anywhere you'd recommend people start?
I'd say I bang on about this all the time. I think my friends are fed up of hearing me talk about the subject, but it's so important. I think, look, when I started Coco Financial, we had a large focus on women and women entrepreneurs. And I'm really passionate about the gap between, the wealth gap, essentially, between men and women. And a really shocking statistic is that the wealth gap when it comes to pensions between men and women is 48%. And on average, we're due to live 8 years longer than men. So less money to live off of for even longer, right? And so I think it's knowing these facts so that we can close the gap. If nobody knows that, we're just going to keep doing what we're already doing, which is earning less, taking off more time for caregiving, all of these kind of things that contribute and compound to that gap. So I would just say take, even if it's not specifically your pension, but what your funds are going to look like later in life. So life fund, retirement fund, whatever you want to call that, whether it's through pension, property, cash, whatever it is, have a plan. Because we all think we're young and we're not going to get old, and then suddenly you're old, and pension poverty is a very real thing. And a lot of the community work we did in my financial literacy business was actually around pension poverty. So I've seen firsthand like really tragic and heartbreaking stories. And even even then I'm thinking like, oh, I've got ages till then. But life is long, but it's also very, very quick. And compound interest is your friend. So just start small. Start yesterday if you can. If you can't start yesterday, start today. And just contributing to your future wealth. Because little and often is better than never.
Just such excellent advice, because I do think, I mean, especially with my friends and my generation, I think people talk a little bit about investing in stocks and shares, all this kind of like sexy, quite sort of high end kind of investment strategies and stuff like that. And I don't feel like anyone ever talks about their pension and like how they're kind of building that. So I think that's such a good reminder that actually that's like at a basic level that's so important.
I mean, do also invest in stocks and
Yeah.
shares. Like diversification. But I think that's one that often gets forgotten, especially by entrepreneurs, because when you're in employment, often, especially because of auto enrollment, you have an employer paying into your pension, and then you go self-employed, and it's the last thing on your mind. And often, like I see entrepreneurs that have been like self-employed for like 8 years, and I'm like, what are we doing about your pension? It's often the forgotten part of finance when running a business. So that's why I like to talk about it. Not because it's the sexiest topic, but it's just important.
That's so true. I can imagine that would slip so easily.
Yeah.
Like as an entrepreneur, I wouldn't even think about that. I don't think I thought about that at all. I started up so, my God, we're having this conversation now at 27, so I can hopefully get it together. And then just to kind of finish up, I would love your one piece of financial advice that you could leave our audience with. So for SMEs, for other accountants, what's your one? Like if we have to remember one thing from this podcast, what would it be?
One thing.
Just one.
I'm just going to repeat something I said earlier. Because I mean it a lot. Just dedicate resources to the life that you actually want to live. Like that's it for me. It's everyone's life's going to look different. You're going to have different goals, dreams, aspirations. Don't play the comparison game. And when you've worked out what contentment, happiness, freedom, whatever those things mean to you, once you find that, just dedicate resources to that life.
I feel like that's almost like the kind of like what's it called, the MO or the MO of being an accountant, right? Is to like enable that to happen for a business and for an individual.
Absolutely. I think that's why I love like being in that space. It is you do help. You get a sense of the goals, dreams, aspirations of your clients, and you get to help them like map that out.
I love that. What a perfect note to end on. Fi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.